One thing in life is constant. No, not taxes. I'm talking about change. Change is constant. Computers are getting faster and smaller. 15 years ago, we'd have to carry a camera, a cell phone, a laptop, a book, and half a dozen other items in our bags to accomplish everything we can now do on one device. Yes, life is more convenient, but it's also more complicated. Convergence has made computers more distracting than ever before, with chirps and beeps alerting us to everything from email, to text messages, to Slacks and tweets, and everything in between. Nowhere is this more evident than when we're trying to get work done. As a writer, my time is often spent not only putting words on the page, but doing extensive research into a topic as well. And all it takes is one errant search on Wikipedia to send me down an informational rabbit hole, wasting precious time looking up the real Ghostbusters when I should be writing. But it wasn't always like this. Once upon a time, the tools we used to get our work done served a single purpose. They didn't distract us with 1,000 features and fiddly bits. In this pilot episode, I'm going to discuss one of my favorite tools from my personal collection. It's over 60 years old, yet it works like it did the day it rolled off the assembly line. I'm talking, of course, about my Smith Corona Sterling typewriter. Please, step inside, and welcome to the study. Lyman Cornelius Smith was a serial entrepreneur from Connecticut who, in 1873, started a livestock commission in New York City that only lasted a few years. Defeated and with nothing to his name except the clothes on his back, Smith moved to Syracuse to try something new. He spun his failure into a lumber business that fared slightly better. Though it too eventually shuttered, Smith was able to pivot to the firearm industry where he found great success producing shotguns. It should be noted that this Smith was not the same person associated with the Smith & Wesson Company. It just happened to be a popular surname among gunmakers at the time. Lyman's company went through several changes over the coming years, but none as important as the addition of one Alexander T. Brown. See, Brown was a talented inventor who noticed something interesting about how shotguns were made. The components and techniques were very similar to those of a budding new technology known as the typewriter. Smith saw an opportunity to get in on the ground floor of something big, so he switched from grinding out guns to taking on typewriters.
To manufacture the things we need, it takes hundreds and hundreds of different kinds of jobs. So, manufacturing is another career cluster.
He and three of his brothers, Monroe, Wilbert, and Hurlbut, established the Smith Premier Typewriter Company in 1886.
About 1900, the Smith Premier appeared.
They eventually merged with the Corona Typewriter Company in 1926, 40 years later and 16 years after L.C. Smith's death. The rest, as they say, was history. Smith Corona became a household name alongside Royal, Underwood, and Remington. I purchased this machine back in 2012 from Gramercy Typewriter Company in New York City. It's a Smith Corona Sterling in seafoam green, and it was made around 1960. Its chassis is entirely made of metal, with plastic only found on the keys and a few knobs here and there. I'd always wanted a typewriter, but finding a place to buy a working one had proved difficult until I started working in the city. The other problem? Money. A good working typewriter was going to cost me several $100s, and with a mortgage, student loans, and excessive commuting costs, that kind of funding was in short supply. Luckily, a friend wanted to buy an iPad for her daughter and didn't want to pay full price for a new one. I just so happened to have a first-generation iPad that had grown too slow and obsolete to be useful for my workflow, so I sold it to her and used the money to buy the Smith Corona. That's right, I sold a high-tech tablet computer to purchase a 50-year-old heavy metal typewriter. The day I bought it, I took the creaky old elevator to the 4th floor of the building where Gramercy Typewriter had called home for decades. A shoebox of a space where turning around too fast might knock over a shelf of recently restored Royals. The owner, Paul Schweitzer, let me try half a dozen models in my price range, but it was the Smith Corona that stole my heart. The bright teal green looked like it had been stripped off an old Ford T-Bird, and the molded plastic keys reminded me of the mechanical computer keyboards I used to use in the school computer labs. All it took was tapping out a few letters to know I'd found my match. Over the years, I've plunked out short stories and started several novels. In fact, my first ever published short story got its start on this brilliant little antique. These days, it doesn't come out of its case as often as I'd like it to. For one, I lack a dedicated space for it to live in. It would be nice to knock out a few hundred words a day on a device that couldn't entice me with a jaunty romp through the wilds of Wikipedia or an endless scroll through my Twitter timeline. Still, I get a charge of glee when I hear its little bell ding, and I relish in the satisfying shoom when I shove the platen back into place. At least I know it's always there, ready, waiting, and reliable. A picture-perfect example of the old saying, they don't make them like they used to.